We are back with another episode of the supplement series with Dr. Jane Dunn from My Happy Genes. And today we're going to talk about whether or not genes, even like supplements, how do genes and supplements work together? They don't seem like they would be compatible or even speak the same language. Can you help us out here?
Yeah, this is an important topic because I think there's a lot of misconception out there that people think that they can turn genes on and off with supplements. And yes, in some cases that is true if you're a low methylator, if you have the MTHFR gene or other genes that impair methylation, because methylation is where genes are turned on or off through supplementation. But basically, what happens is folic acid and B12, when you take those, it covers up the gene so that the environment can't get in there and turn it on. And so, in that case, yeah, that's a direct correlation with genetics. But with what we are doing, we're actually looking at the enzyme that is coded by your genetics. And that's where it's stunning what you can do aside from turning a gene on and off with it. I'm not as much concerned about that as I am with optimizing our biochemistry. So in the case of, let's say, the C gene, it codes for the COMT enzyme, and that COMT stands for catechol transferase. And whenever you hear that ASE ending, you know it's an enzyme. So this enzyme, if you've got a genetic variant there, in other words, you get one set of genes from mom, one set of genes from dad. If they gave you the wrong code for it, that enzyme is going to be misfigured, if you will. It'll be misshapen. So the enzymes have a lock and key kind of system. If the key doesn't fit into the lock correctly because that enzyme is misfigured, there are ways using nutrients to open up that lock so that the key can get in. And that's what we're doing is we're changing the shape of the enzyme because you inherited the wrong code for it and it's all gnarly. We straighten it out and get it to work correctly through nutrients. That's the trick here. And that's the really cool thing is we know what nutrients precisely are needed to make that enzyme work better. And so when we give you that nutrient, it opens up that lock so the key can fit in and the body starts to work like it's supposed to work. And so in the catechol-methyltransferase, getting the right cofactors in there, its job is to break down adrenaline. And so if you have a genetic variant there, you're probably going to be anxious a lot and under stress a lot and can't break down that adrenaline correctly because you've inherited this genetic variant. And so if we upregulate the ability of that enzyme to do its job, it'll break down adrenaline correctly and your whole body will just calm down. And so that's really the key to how this all works is understanding what cofactors make up for your genetic variant.
I know that you said in the previous email that you felt like it was in a day or two that your life had changed because you added this supplement. And if somebody had anxiety and then they got the right cofactors and then they might not feel that anxious anymore. Sometimes we take things that are prescribed. You don't necessarily feel different. Like from certain supplements, you're not going to feel the result. So I'm just thinking if somebody were to get their genes tested and one of your practitioners said, you really need ADK and blah, blah, blah. And they took them and they thought, I don't really feel that different. They have to take the test again, the questionnaire, to see what their symptoms are, right? I think we don't pay attention to our bodies as much as we could, I guess is what
That's
I'm
the
saying.
key. That's the take
There you
home
go. I
there.
just talked myself right into an answer there, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay, bye
Yeah.
now.
No, it's funny because it's true of a lot of people. They go, well, I don't really feel anything from them. And I'll say, stop taking them for a while. And they're like, oh, wow. Yeah, I guess I was tired before, or I was
Mhm.
having headaches, or I did have anxiety, or I did have depression, and I just didn't pay a lot of attention to it. And in some cases, they're pretty healthy. They're doing a lot of the right things. However, there's still a genetic risk coming
Mhm.
down the pike, essentially. So when we look at their genetic profile, it could be you have a risk for cognitive decline. And so you may not feel like you have an issue now. Your memory's fine, but with cognitive decline, that's decline is the key word there. It's
Mm.
coming down the road if you don't pay attention and you don't do something preventatively. So you, again, in that case, you probably wouldn't feel it.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but you have prevented, and that's really another good reason for getting your genes tested because you don't know that unless you're not
Right.
feeling it. Maybe a parent or a grandparent or somebody had some dementia, but you just think you are. I mean, your genes tested can give you a heads up and go, oh boy, I better pay attention to this because I don't want to end up that way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Some people will be resistant to taking supplements because they don't believe that they do anything. We've heard, everybody has heard it's just expensive urine. But you're making the case for the fact that these are powerful agents when used well.
Yes, and when they're good quality supplements,
Mm.
because that brings up a whole another issue. And I think we're going to do another Q&A about that. But there's a lot of junk out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen supplements come through the digestive system. As a chiropractor, I would take x-rays, and sometimes I would see their multiple vitamin going on down the digestive system, coming out the exact same way it went in. It's about quality also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and your belief is, as many people I've spoken to, that doctor formulated prescription supplements are better quality. Obviously, the doctor has to have a reputation for quality, but rather than going to GNC or something and grabbing a no-name kind of anything off the shelf.
And I think there needs to be some education on that, because there are issues with quality. There are lots of studies that were done showing that there are high levels of arsenic or lead or heavy metals of various kinds, pesticides, chemicals, and excipients in a lot of over-the-counter products. It's a crapshoot. Nobody's monitoring that.
Mm-hmm.
The FDA doesn't monitor that. So you don't know what you're getting actually. And so does it even have in it what it says in it? And that's what we call label claim. And so when you do a doctor's line, it has to have in it exactly what it has in it. It
Mm-hmm.
has to say what it says it has in it. And it has to be tested. Every batch is tested for heavy metals, chemicals, pesticides, excipients. And if it doesn't meet a low standard on that, or a high standard, I should say, then the samples are rejected. They must meet those standards in order to be called a physician's line. And so it's a big difference out there. And so people take supplements and they think, oh, it doesn't work. It could be it has nothing in it. And there have been studies where they took vitamins off the shelf and tried to measure active ingredients and found no active ingredient in some samples, and sometimes more active ingredient than it says on there. And so it's just scary out there to buy supplements, even from a health food store, because these are not regulated and not tested. So CVS is cheap. Costco is super cheap. You can get that big, huge $5 bottle of calcium. And the other part is what type is it? So calcium carbonate is chalk.
Mm-hmm.
Calcium lactate is more better well absorbed. It's what form is it in also, and that's another big issue. So there's a really lot of education around supplements that is important, and most people aren't aware that there are differences.
Aim to educate, don't we?
Yes, we do. And when it comes to folic acid, if you have a genetic variant in the MTHFR and you take folic acid, which is in a lot of multiple vitamins, it can actually do some damage. It's adverse for
Mm.
you because you can't convert folic acid into the active form efficiently. That's the other piece of it, is what genetic variants do you have? And when it comes to, should I get into the multiple question? You good with that?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay. When it comes to designing a multiple vitamin around your genetics, there is no one size fits all. We know that. And for you to pick up a supplement that's a multiple vitamin from a health food store, let's say, and just start taking it and say, I don't feel anything. Or sometimes people feel worse. They can have some nausea or diarrhea, other symptoms, and just think it's something else causing it. But around your genes, you have to have the right forms of, you might need methylfolate, you might need methylcobalamin, you might need a different form of calcium, a different form of magnesium. And so it's very tricky to get a multiple that fits you genetically. It's pretty darn rare that we get one that fits.
Yeah, and okay, I'll go there. Especially, I would say, when you talk about multis from a health food store, they perhaps have a better selection than my local chain drugstore. And there are targeted ones. There are for moms, for seniors, for everyday active people, for more active, less active. All of those supplements, first of all, they're hard as rock, and those are probably the ones that go right down the canal and come back out. But
Yeah.
they're, even if they get some of the amounts right, let's just say the vitamin C at 500 milligrams a day in two, usually not capsules. maybe that's enough for the person. But try to balance the C with the D and with all of them. And how can look at Jay and I are similar but different. I don't want to take what she's taking. She has different things in her physiology and her biochemistry than I do. And that's what those companies are hoping for, that you'll see the commercial. Oh, this improved my memory. I'm writing an article on that one. Or this gave me more energy. Did it really? Or is it placebo effect? Anyway, back to the point that you made earlier. You cannot get something off the shelf that answers all of your particular biochemical needs and for cheap.
Yeah,
For
no,
cheap. Or
it's
for
just very,
expensive. There are plenty of very expensive vitamins that are
yeah,
multis. So get educated, people. Stick
yeah,
around the YouTube channel. We'll keep you informed.
yeah.
Anything else you want to say about this topic?
No, that was great.
All right. We'll see you again next week. I think we're veering off into the world of calcium, maybe calcium and magnesium and bones and stuff. So if you're interested in that, I hope you'll join us next week on the YouTube channel. And if you're interested in subscribing to these, head over to myhappygenes.com or send us an email, info@myhappygenes, and we'll put you on the list to make sure you don't miss any.